What's going on YouTube? It's James Q Quick from Learn, Build, Teach, and I'm back with another resume review. And this one, if you watch the channel, you maybe have seen the code reviews. This is actually going to be a resume review for JC Smiley, who I did my first code review for, who I also know personally. He's a big member of the community here in Memphis. He's really awesome, self-taught, which I have a lot of respect for. He's one of my teacher's assistants in the boot camp that I teach. Really enjoy working with JC, so I'm happy to have been able to help him a little bit on the code side and now be able to kind of double back and hopefully help on the resume side and get him into his first job in a development career. So I've got his resume up here. Obviously, I've gone ahead and blacked out his phone and email information, so you cannot do that. But I just want to start by saying one of the most standard pieces of feedback that I will probably give on resumes is to make it as short and sweet as possible and to make things stand out that need to be standing out as much as possible. And lastly, as part of the make it short and sweet, typically the recommendation is to make these one page. So to start off, I'm looking down and we've got 2 pages here. But I think there's lots of ways that we can optimize this to really focus on things that are the most important. So let's start with the skills up here. Actually, let's actually start a little bit higher. So we've got, this is a little bit picky. We've got 3 lines here under software developer. I think, so you've got your LinkedIn, your GitHub, and then your portfolio, which will open in a second. It might be cool to open up or to add like icons for these, like a LinkedIn icon, a GitHub icon, and then just kind of a general web circle icon that will link to these. You can just kind of put them laid out horizontally underneath software developer. That will at least kind of help you get 2 lines here back, which I guess you've got 1 line over here. So it'll give you at least 1 extra line here to cut off a little bit of space and make it look a little bit cleaner with the icons. So that's the first piece in that area. Then we get into skills, and I'm thinking we can probably combine these at least with JavaScript frameworks. We could take Express and just kind of add that on with Node, and obviously my font is not matching, so I apologize for that. But just add Node and Express to that 1 line. There may be the ability to combine JavaScript frameworks and programming languages, maybe not. So let's leave that for now. And in programming languages, I think from being my TA and the work that we're doing with our Launch Code bootcamp students, you can add Python on here as well. And then you could, if you wanted to, tie in Python Flask to one of these, you could do that as well. So you got your development tools, you've got Node, Heroku, Git, GitHub. These are huge. Those are really big. I like that you have Adobe XD on here for a little bit of design stuff. VS Code and brackets are pretty big. You can potentially add IntelliJ on here as well. This is what we use in our bootcamp for the Java side. And I forgot about that actually. You can potentially put Java in here as well. Now, a lot of times people will debate whether or not to put a language on their resume, and they debate about, you know, the balance. There's a balance between putting a language on there that you really don't know versus putting a language on there that you're comfortable with, but you don't know how comfortable you should be with a language before you put it on your resume. So here's my thing. If you have experience with a programming language, I think it's reasonable to put it on your resume. I think that if people ask you about your experience in that language, you be honest and you say what that experience is. So don't try to oversell your experience in a given language, but feel comfortable putting that on your resume. So JC, in this scenario, I think putting Python and Java on here makes sense. If someone asks you in an interview what's your experience, you tell them your experience is through the bootcamp and you built a couple of different projects and help students debug their code and all that kind of stuff. So let's say, just for the sake of kind of looking at size here, I'm going to remove all the way across. All right, so I think that got rid of that line. So that's 1 line down, and then we saved another line in here. So then we have featured project and professional experience. I think I'm gonna come back to this, but a couple of things that stand out. One, you've got your portfolio linked, or you would have up here once you do the icons, if you decide to do that. You don't need to do that again, so you can save 1 line there. You don't need to have the link to the project in your bullet points. What you can do to save a little space there is just make the active cases, make that a link. So right click on that and do hyperlink, and then paste that link right in there. Now you saved another line. I think you can also combine a couple of these. Typically a common wording I would use with this would be used React, Bootstrap, Node Express, and Node Express to build an app that tracks the current status of an open case. And I think you've got a few kind of extra words in here that I think you could get rid of. For the most part, I think that really sums it up. You've got the technologies, which that's the most important part. What does the app do, and then what technologies did you use to build it? And you could, if you wanted to tie in local storage, you could do that too. Just know, and I think you do, local storage is not super persistent. So if someone wiped out your cache or something, that stuff would go away. I'm also curious. So you mentioned a progressive web app. Does that specifically mean a PWA progressive web app? If not, I would change that wording, because that would get that would be referencing something that you don't quite have experience with. If that's not the case, if it is an actual PWA progressive web app, then that's great and that's super cool. And if it is, I would leave it up here as a PWA. So I think you could probably get away with this, and maybe even that. I'll let you kind of be the judge of that. So let's leave it at 2 lines for now. So then we've got a professional experience. One thing is typically your most recent, you got my dog in the background, the most recent experience goes on top, and that would include things that you're currently doing. So the teacher's assistant at launch code, that's current. So that would be something that you would keep at the top. Same with your, and this is your full-time job, working at the gaming convention. Those would go up there as well. So you can work on that order later on. I think you've got a great piece of experience on here. This was a paid freelance opportunity for, I think, building a React Native application. I think that's super cool. I don't, let's see, does this, you could maybe get away with saving that line. Depends on, it's a little tight, so that might look a little better, but it might be okay to get rid of. I would try to parse these down a little bit more, make them, so let's say we combine these two, say build, or again, let's use that same format, use React Native HTML, CSS, based on wireframes to, let's see, really, honestly, it's really this line. And I don't know if you need to separate out the development part, I think, or the duties part. So you can say develop an Android mobile app for a vintage car museum. I think you could do that and just kind of start in your bullet points. I think so. These things here, JavaScript to update state, insert data to be displayed, navigate between components. Those are a little specific, technical wise. You might be able to get rid of that. I would reword this testing. So test each component for, I would make it a little bit more generic, not necessarily using the word component, but ensured consistent user experience through testing of some sort. Something like that might be a little cleaner, a little bit more generic, and you kind of focus on, you really want to focus on you did testing and focused on user experience. Right, so that you could think about that wording. I'm not completely sold on that, but you could play around with that as well. So I don't think this information, one, we talked about the portfolio. That's already included in a link at the top, so I think that could go. Also, you should mention your tech stack, which you do have, in the bullet points. So I don't think you need to repeat those. And then you've got your tools used up at the top. And I think that would take care of everything on there. So now let's come down to the teacher's assistant. I don't know if there was a space here or not, but there probably should be. You can still do this. I would be consistent with either Well, I think the bullet points just kind of work. So let's see what a bullet point looks like there. I think that would be good. You mentioned, you mentioned the technologies and stuff, which we covered. That's good. The guided part. So you want to be consistent in your resume. So this part it doesn't have a noun. It's assisted. It doesn't start with I assisted. Because this is also the same kind of thing, that would be basically a separate line. It's not a full sentence, and you don't want to combine you don't want to use it as a full sentence on a line that's not meant to be a pair of full sentences, if that makes sense. You got a comma here, a little bit of spacing issue. So I think this looks a little bit cleaner. That looks pretty good. Then you get into your main job. You've got your duties. I would still come to that bullet point format. And then also, I don't think you need to have a second additional role. I think you can come up here. I got my dog whining in the background, so I apologize if we can hear that. You can just bullet point this, and then you can not necessarily separate out those things. Let's see, you can get a bullet point. There we go. In this case, again, you don't need the portfolio link. These might actually be enough to come into being, change this to like relevant projects and list those really quickly under the relevant projects. I think might fit a little bit better because you've got this weird balance. Not weird, but it doesn't quite fit where you've done a lot of things for your job using your development skills, which is fantastic, by the way. I'm recording. All right, just got interrupted for a second. But I think there's this mix of you've got your full-time job and then you did a great job of tying in your development experience and trying to get more experience with your job, but they're not necessarily things that you did as part of your active job, I guess. So I think these really kind of fit under the relevant project section. And this shows like multiple different things that you've done on your own to really reinforce the things the things that you've learned and the practice and time that you put in to learning. So I think you could probably tweak that around to wrap that into the relevant project section. Now, just we're getting a little bit closer, right? We saved a little bit of space here at the bottom. I think one, you've got great community involvement. I think this is something you should definitely keep. That's great. I also didn't know that you had the MIS degree from Ole Miss, which is super cool as well. And I think that's going to help you in your job search. I would just try to make these things a little bit smaller. So I think you've got good stuff in here. I don't think the specific blog posts are going to do a whole lot. I don't think people are going to look at that as much. I'm okay removing that. If that's something you really think is important, then you can kind of let that be your decision. I think you can combine these 2 points. It doesn't really save any space. Let's see. You could take away one piece of that just to make it a little bit smaller, because having 3 basically titles back to back is a little much. So chapter leader and engagement manager, I think that does a pretty good job of encompassing the things that you do. Also, the way you've got this structured down here, I kind of like it. Just a couple of 2 quick sentences. I think you could actually get rid of these bullets and just make that into a couple of sentences this way. But I would still make that a little bit smaller. You might get rid of the lead presenter. I think this is not the kind of thing that people are going to pull you into a job because of that line specifically. It's really going to be the technologies and relevant projects that you've worked on. I think I would be okay getting rid of that. And that's something you could talk to in an interview. If people ask you about your engagement at Code Connector, I think you can then talk about those details. I would maybe not specify the my contribution on these. I think you could get away without doing that. I also think we could now potentially get rid of a few lines in here. I don't think we need quite that much spacing. So you've got great stuff on here. The Give Camp, the Hackathon for Smart City. You've got great stuff in your community. These things could also potentially go into relevant projects. But I think trying to parse this stuff down to really getting on what are the things that you want to focus on. And it's those big keywords. It's React Native, it's JavaScript, it's React. It's the applications that you've built, the experience that you have with Python and Java, design stuff with Adobe XD and Photoshop. That's really great as well. So I think we're starting to get to kind of parsing it down and really focusing on what's most important, and then just kind of tweaking the design a little bit to help solidify those things. So one, I think your resume looks good. I'm really hoping that this something works out for you soon. I've really been rooting for you. I had a great time reviewing your code last week, and then getting to come back and kind of follow up with this resume review. I'm enjoying it. JC, I really enjoy working with you. I hope that other people can benefit from this resume review as well, and that you do directly, primarily first and foremost. So that's going to wrap up this resume review. I will see you guys in a future one. Hey guys, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. You can also check out learnbuildteach.com to sign up for the newsletter to learn about my latest content. Thanks for watching.